We are live. So what I'm going to do here today is try to give you a politically neutral take on the social dynamics of why they tried to assassinate Donald Trump. I don't care if you're right-leaning politically. I don't care if you're left-leaning politically. And I definitely don't care about your comment that you want to write underneath this that has not related to the social dynamics of this, but just your political opinion, okay? This is not about your political opinion or mine. This is about social skills and social dynamics related to collectivism and individualism, related to status, related to hierarchy. And what I'm trying to do here is give you a Rosetta Stone through which to look at the news, but also a Rosetta Stone through which to look at yourself, how to understand yourself as far as status dynamics and people trying to take you down, okay? And so I'm going to be explaining that and how to rise above it. And that's going to be my goal here. So if you like making more money, if you like building better social skills, if you like being happier, and you want to understand how to power through all the bullshit, this is going to be all about that, put through the lens of a recent modern day event. Now, by the way, if you like this kind of content and you want to learn about how to better yourself, make sure that you get out to the upcoming free event. The upcoming free event that we're doing in Portland and Seattle is this fucking week. I'll be in the Pacific Northwest, okay? I come to the Pacific Northwest in summer because it's like God country in the middle of summer. The rest of the year it rains. But for those of you that wait all year through the rain for the beautiful season, I'm coming there to join you. I'll see you in Portland and Seattle this weekend. Then we're going to be hitting up Honolulu and Chicago, New York City, Boston, Philadelphia, DC, Dallas, Houston, Austin, LA. We're going to be hitting up Phoenix and Vegas, San Diego, San Francisco, Miami, and Orlando, and then probably calling it quits on the free tour, okay? So make sure that if you want to learn about how to make more cash, get better social skills, get tapped in, get to a free tour. We're going to be networking. You're going to have the chance to go out with me at night if you want to. We're going to be going fucking crazy, okay? It's going to be amazing, amazing at the free tour. Now, if you want the best lessons, get inside here, Higher Purpose Program. It has a completely and utterly free group inside a Higher Purpose Program. That link right there, okay? Get inside there. We're actually taking that down coming up because we're going to be doing a major product release coming up. So make sure that you get inside Higher Purpose Program for free. While that is up for free, we're taking that away. You get a free coaching call. You get access to a free group. You get invited inside of Zooms, and you get an entirely free course that is my most foundational course on how to make cash fast. Okay, you want to learn how to make cash really fast. You want to learn about social skills really fast. You want it to be step by step, to the point, not me ranting, to the point, and just get it quick. Get inside here. It's going to be gone, completely free. Higher Purpose Program, and make sure that you fly out and see me coming up, Portland, Seattle, and all these amazing events coming up right here. Okay, so you've just seen that Donald Trump got shot. Our boy got shot, okay? Hate him or love him. He shot. And that's a total shit show for the United States. Looks fucking terrible for everybody. Looks fucking terrible. But what I want to explain this to you through is a couple different prisms to understand things, okay? The first thing that I want you to understand is the natural trajectory of things. So in other words, these sorts of things have a trajectory to them, okay? So simple example would be that I broke my leg skiing. Now, what do we see? In the past couple years, I'm kind of an idiot. So first of all, I started doing skiing that was way too dangerous. And I did that, and I pulled off some of the most legendary, just personal days of my life skiing, just crazy shit. But then eventually I tore my ACL. Then I healed that. I actually healed it naturally without surgery, which is probably not the best idea, but I did it. And then from there, I wound up doing another crazy fucking season. I went crazier and crazier. And then I wound up absolutely demolishing my leg. Now I'm walking again, but I absolutely demolished my fucking leg. Well, what's the trajectory there, okay? That's called being an idiot. When you're an idiot, and I'm a bit of an idiot, you take risks, and then you get a little bit hurt, and then you get more hurt, and you get more hurt, and eventually things blow up, right? It's like in a relationship that you've had. You get in a fight with your significant other, and then they bitch and moan. They bitch and moan a bit more. They're ungrateful a bit more. They complain a bit more, and then eventually they cheat on you, right? There's a trajectory to these things, okay? So you can sort of read the tea leaves of the trajectory that something is going in. So learn to do that in your life, okay? If you see that things are escalating, there's a direction to them and a momentum to them, then you should know that's going to happen. Anybody who's not an idiot should be able to see that Donald Trump's going to get shot because they tried to cancel him in every which way, right? You start off with deplatforming, debanking, using lawfare. A lot of people that don't understand both sides of it are like, oh, I thought those charges were legitimate. Listen, every single politician has things that you could charge them for. Hillary Clinton, doesn't matter who it is. But he was the first one that actually had lawfare used like that against him. Then from there, you try to put him in jail. If the guy doesn't give up, they're going to shoot you, okay? So that's what's going to happen. That's called cancel culture. So, they kind of poke you along the little kind of escalator, right? And if you don't get off the escalator when they keep poking at you, they shoot you. That is how cancel culture works. So there's a trajectory that's there, okay? We always knew that Trump was going to get shot. He's probably going to get shot again, or blown up by a truck bomb, or on a flight, or poisoned or something, right? We know that Trump is probably going to get killed. Everybody knows that, okay? Now, the next thing that I want to show you is why. And I want to explain to you the sort of psychology behind this. Okay, so there's something happening right now called the culture war. And the culture war can be looked at from a lot of different angles. But I'm going to try to give you a unique angle to try to understand the culture war. So here's kind of what it is. You have two different sides of the political divide. You have collectivism and you have individualism. In my personal view, this is a little bit, if you want to window into some of my politics, I believe that there's benefits to both sides. So for example, I love nature. I don't want a fucking Walmart sitting in the middle of Yellowstone National Park, okay? I don't want to, take a flight into Denali in Alaska and see a Burger King sitting there. And they're like, hey, it's freedom. We got some land right here, right? So things like the protection of land are collectivist in nature, okay? And, even as somebody like myself that cares a lot about individual rights, that is collectivist in nature. And those are things that I personally do agree with. You don't have to, by the way. Maybe you want a McDonald's in the middle of Yellowstone, and for that kind of thing to happen. I just personally don't, okay? I like things like roads. Roads are collectivist in nature, okay? So understand that there's good sides of collectivism. There's also a lot of good sides of individualism, like free expression, the ability to be fully yourself, and the ability to reach your potential without other people trying to suck off your energy and work. So there's different sides to this, right? And both sides often think that they're completely right. In my personal view, there's pros and cons of both, okay? That's sort of how I see it. That's where I land politically. I don't look at a politician based on a cult. I look at a politician based on policy. So, Trump didn't get us into any wars. Trump had some benefits to the economy, although racked up debt. Trump was also pro-big pharma, which I don't like. Trump also initially allowed lockdowns, which I don't like. Trump also did not do enough to fight for free speech on the internet, which I don't like, which later came back to fuck him. And then now that it fucked him personally, even though previously it fucked his supporters, now he'll probably do something about it. Maybe he'll even get to see certain videos again. If that guy comes around, who knows? So the point being is I don't really care about any individual politician. What I care about is I look at it from policy to policy to policy. That said, there is a certain leadership tone that a politician has. If I were to analyze Trump, what I'd say is a lot of this Twitter bullshit is fucking annoying. Basically showing a very lowbrow kind of example to the population can be divisive at times. But then at the same time, what's hilarious about the guy, and this is the part that I think anybody could appreciate, is that everybody's coming after him, and the dude just has no fucks given, which is fucking hilarious in an environment that's hypersensitive. So if you're somebody who doesn't like the hypersensitive environment, you probably have some kind of appreciation of a guy tells them just to go fuck themselves and is unrepentant about it. And I think that was, for a lot of people that are on the left that don't understand why some people voted him in, they're like, well, why did you vote for that guy? If your personal issue is I'm just sick of the hypersensitive culture, and even though the guy's on some kind of NPD tirade on Twitter, nonetheless, the fact that there's sort of no fucks given for people that are really, really, really into free expression, that's something they sort of connect to and they sort of latch onto. So if you're somebody on the left kind of wondering why people would be into that, well, if somebody cares a lot about free expression, that's why. By the way, freedom of expression, freedom of speech, what do we know about that? That previously was an issue of the left. So a lot of people that were previously on the left wind up on the right. Now, let's go a little bit deeper, okay? That's a little bit of political breakdown. Take that for what you will. I've got a lot of friends in politics at very high levels, but I'm not an expert politician. That's just my take on it. Okay. Now, and by the way, I don't care what party you're in. I love you anyway, okay? I'm a big fan of debate, and I love you anyway. So I'm just giving a little bit of my take on how I personally understand this stuff. Okay, so let's go down the rabbit hole a little bit further. So what we have is the culture war, and you have individualism and you have collectivism, okay? Now, basically what you have there, okay, the way that it's sort of been split apart, and this is sort of arbitrary, is that if somebody is very, very loud, very, very brash, very, very self-sufficient, for men, it might be what you might call a man's man, et cetera, they will tend to, but not always, definitely not always, but they will oftentimes tend to be a little bit more individualist, right? So individualism, what it basically means is that you want the freedom to figure out your own shit, okay? You don't really want the help. You want to figure out your own shit. In collectivism, that's a little bit more like, hey, why don't we band together because we're stronger together collectively. So if we use our collective efforts, we can make the world better, okay? So both of those sides have some impact. Somebody like myself, when I grew up, and I'm in a haze of light level autism and depression. I'm very, very neurotic. I'm suicidally depressed when I'm younger. Definitely would have been very much into collectivism because I couldn't really figure out how to do things on my own. I really needed fucking help. Somebody like my son Vincent, who's autistic, my firstborn son Vincent, who's autistic, I'm really, really glad that some of those collectivist mentalities exist so that he won't just get fucking run through on the fucking playground, right? And so that he'll have support when he's older, when I'm dead and gone. He'll have that from his brothers too, but you know my point. Likewise, me being in a wheelchair recently, again, people in collectivist mentality really lifted me up, people that care for others and look out for other people, even if they are virtue signaling. So that was cool. Now, as I've gotten older, you have to understand I'm a little bit different, right? So I embraced the self-help journey. I basically figured out how to make millions of dollars completely on my own. I don't need help from anybody. How did I do that? I learned about modern day marketing techniques. I studied the top marketers in the world for many, many years. I studied the best people in social dynamics for many, many years. I studied a huge amount about emotional regulation, how to regulate my own emotions to the point that I basically never, ever get depressed. I studied nutrition and natural health to the highest level to where I have not been sick, even a common cold since 2012. Had a couple little bit of coughing here or there, but literally have never been sick at all since 2012. And we're sitting here in 2024. So imagine that if you kind of figure out how to do things on your own, what kind of transformation starts to happen? You become really confident. You become fucking loud. You become brash. You become a can-do kind of person. You start to find the world funny. You're not sensitive. You don't get triggered easily. You like to make big, crazy fucking jokes. It's a little bit more of like the stereotype of what people think of as American, right? That guy in the wild, wild west, just out there living the fucking dream. And there's still people out there like that today that are just very individualistic and handle things for themselves, okay? But to do that, what winds up happening is things like, it's really a personal journey to get there. Things like what Jocko Willink would call extreme ownership, taking personal responsibility even for things that sometimes aren't your fault, never, ever, ever being a victim, being proud of never being a victim, absolutely taking total ownership of every single outcome that you have. If you're somebody who is getting sick all the time, you read every single nutrition book under the sun and you learn everything about your immune system. And then, you just get out there and you freaking crush it, right? And then likewise, if you're not making enough money, you just sit there and you study everything about money and you crush it. And so on and so forth, right? You don't have the social skills that you want. Well, then you study till you crush it. Within a system of collectivism, what you're kind of looking for is you're like, look, I don't want to spend my life annihilating myself to learn this stuff. Can't the system handle it for me? And can I be a part of that system? Okay. How do I participate in that system? And then I feed into the system and then the system feeds back into me. Both of them have their pros and cons. So what you're beginning to see is a cultural divide between those two. And because of the internet, and because we don't just all watch the same news anymore on 5 television channels, we're entering it into sort of a culture war. And you're seeing, different people kind of aligning with each other. Now, I began to realize that something was fucking crazy was going on back in 2014. Because prior to 2014, I was a part of a lot of very, very high-level networking groups. I've been at tables with people like Bill Clinton. I've been at tables with F.W. de Klerk, or even Rudolph Giuliani and things like that. I've been around presidents of countries. I've been around the top business people in the world. I've been around the top philanthropists in the world, top artists in the world. I was very, very plugged in at a young age networking because we were famous, right? This was back in the day when the Neil Strauss book was out. We were famous. We had incredible media coverage. We were on the front pages of some newspapers like the Sydney Herald and others, in mainstream magazine. People thought what we did was fun and cute. They liked it. They thought it was entertaining, and none of it was a big deal. And then 2014 came around. And then all of a sudden, there was a shit show. And we were actually at the foundation of cancel culture, right? And that was really, truly something to behold. It was completely insane. And even though I think that we were, saying a lot of fucked up jokes and things that were probably pretty fucking stupid, at the same time, our intentions were basically just being out there helping people to connect. That was our goal. And then we saw all this crazy shit happen. So a lot of the things that I understood at that time, that I saw, I was able to understand sort of what was coming kind of a lot before other people did, right? Like I was sort of able to see the trajectory of the culture war prior to other people, because I was kind of put at the, at the root of it, or at the pit of it, right? Like right at the start. I saw just the craziest things that you would never imagine. Some of the things that they did to us, a lot of them actually, I don't talk about because I don't want to encourage it to happen again. But the things that happened to us were fucking insane. I mean, truly, truly, truly fucking insane. So you better believe that I understood that President Trump was going to get assassinated, or that they would at least really, really try to. That was obvious, okay? Now, why does this happen? Why is it that people often in collectivism tend to do a lot of purging, a lot of canceling and things like that? This happens because, okay, so here's the best way to explain that to you. Here's the best way to understand it, okay? If you are an individualist and you go into a collectivist country, the amount of attention that you will get dating-wise is so off the charts, it is beyond your comprehension. Let me say this again. If you are a staunch individualist, in other words, loud, brash, fucking hilarious, never a victim, super high self-esteem, super can-do, super capable, super fucking fearless, just gets things done. You set your mind to something, it just fucking happens. You put in the fucking work, and you're just a fucking badass. And you walk into, if you're like that and you go out in Hollywood, there's competition. There's other big badass motherfuckers out there competing with you. Okay, you go out in New York, there's other big swinging dick motherfuckers out there competing with you. Big, brash motherfuckers, okay? You go out in Vegas, you go out in South Beach. I mean, it is a fucking competition. Big fucking G's out there, like big ass, big swinging dick energy motherfuckers out there. That's where you get that big ass fucking brash ego from. And you're in there and you're competing with those guys, and you just go in there and you fucking crush it. You just fucking win because that's how you're born. You're just born to fucking win. Well, you go to a collectivist country where people are kind of soft and they're a little bit more like, hi, and they're a little bit more polite. You go in there, I mean, it is a madhouse, okay? It is fucking insane. So instinctively, just by instinct, and when I say insane, you need to listen to what the fuck I'm saying, okay? Like, okay? Like, what the fuck? Okay, it is, okay, it's like Drake arrived or something, okay? Like, it's at that level. Why? Because individualists naturally just got fucking swag, bro. It's just fucking swag. So, if you go to certain collectivist countries, the degree of suppression psychologically, if it's a more extreme collectivist country, I mean, I've had some of them come on my trainings, and it's like a 1 trillion pound anvil has been dropped on their fucking soul. Like deep rooted low self-esteem, deep rooted low winner effect, like to the point that they're so disconnected, and at most they can sort of enter into like a little bit of a sort of transactional mentality, like, okay, well, I want this, right? Just like in like this deeply suppressed consciousness, just thinking like, if I could just get like this, get a date or something, or a bit more money, I could be free of this, not even realizing that like they're in the realm of hungry ghosts. Like, really getting things comes from internal fulfillment, and then that beautiful energy projecting outward, okay? But they don't understand that. And so they get in this highly transactional mindset. Some of them read the Neil book. So they're like, well, it said in the Neil book that you just say these things and then you get the transaction. Right? And you're like, yo, you're fucking crazy. You need to calm down. You need to find that inner light. You need to turn that on and emanate that light outward. And when you do that, people will come to you. You'll go engage them, but they'll be drawn to you within that engagement. So what winds up happening is, that raw individualism of just absolute swag, like galaxy level swag, when it's just like, I control my emotions. Nobody intimidates me. I love my God, I love my life. I feel so happy. I'm just joyful. I'm beaming with energy because I've just conquered my environment. That kind of energy, when transplanted into a collectivist culture, it's almost like an invasive species, right? Like imagine here would be an example. I remember when I went to Big Island in Hawaii, okay, which is one of the major islands in Hawaii. It's actually the biggest one. And I remember I landed, and I've been to Africa. And I land, and I look around, and I'm like, am I in Africa right now? And it's like all these African plants. What happened was, in Hawaii, the plants were very, very non-competitive. So the plants' roots don't attack each other. In Africa, even the plants are competitive. The animals are all the animals are like poisonous and have big teeth and big claws, and they kill each other. But likewise, even the plants fucking kill each other. So a couple of the old settlers in Hawaii, like a couple hundred years ago, they brought these African plants in, and these African plants became an invasive species, and they just killed off all the softer plants. That is what happens in a collectivist society, is that everybody gets, not everybody, but the vast majority of people get a little bit softer, and they give that leadership to the top, and they comply on the basis that perhaps there could be more social cohesion or more social organization, right? But you got to understand, if you're somebody who is like, got a little bit of swagger, and you go into one of these cultures, like the African plant that just takes over the whole island, I mean, it's like being Drake at a Drake concert when you're a regular guy, right? They have, and the reason why is like, they've never even heard a voice projected like that. They've never seen unrepentant, irreverent humor like that, like an individualist has. They've never met somebody who's so untriggered like that. Somebody who's that much in state, somebody with that much joy, somebody with that much free associative skills. Like, it's ridiculous. It's like a Rambo movie, just like, it's just madhouse, right? So at a gut level instinct from a reproductive standpoint, if somebody is at the far end of a collectivist culture and they have sort of like, they've like, I don't know, say that a guy, for example, is like a male feminist, okay? He's like, I'm a male feminist. Well, if that guy is like really complying to that, like the big joke of it is a lot of the time, the same women that would like hang out with male feminists as friends wind up dating some fucking asshole because that guy's more irreverent, right? And then the male feminist guy's like, but I thought that if I white knighted that you would love me, right? And then he just winds up being the guy that she vents to. So that's the thing, right? Is like, you try to comply and go, and you think that you're kind of going along with the, with the group and whatnot, and you're trying to be compliant. But what winds up happening instead is you wind up losing your girl. Okay, so a lot of this stuff is actually sexual, socio-sexual dynamic related. So people at a core level instinct, if they're in collectivism, often see somebody who is loud and brash and in state, and their instinct is to fucking kill that guy. Okay, they want to fucking kill that guy because that guy does not allow the collective system to work. So let me give a simple example, okay? I'll give a healthy example, then I'll give like an unhealthy example. A healthy example, just checking on some of your guys' comments here. A healthy example, that would be something like, okay, so say that we're on a boat, right? I gave this example yesterday. Let's say that we're on a boat. And on that boat, you wind up, we're all gonna drown and we all have to paddle. Okay, I gave this example yesterday, so I'll give it quickly again. And let's say all 10 of us have to paddle to make it. And let's say that in one little jug, we have just enough water and just enough food that if all of us share the food equally, and if all of us paddle, we'll make it in together. But let's say that one guy says, I'm an individualist, y'all. I'm eating all this food and I'm not paddling. Well, all of a sudden we're like, hey, we're throwing you off the back of the boat, motherfucker. Because if you just go eat all our food, you don't paddle, we're all gonna die. That would be like a healthy version of collectivism. Probably be best not to throw someone on the side of a boat. But you see my point that I'm getting at here, right? That's like an instinct. Like, hey, we're not going to get to where we want to go if we don't collectively unite. And you're fucking this up, bro, out of your selfishness. For your freedom, bro. Yeah, you're free to eat all our fucking food, not even contribute your part while we fucking work. And then we're all going to fucking die because of you, right? So that would be an example of collectivism that would make some sense. Then you have collectivism that, in my view, I don't feel makes as much sense personally. So that would be, for example, let's say that you just get so much swagger, like so much swag, that you just crush it socially. I mean, it's like you walk into a venue and like everybody's crawling over you, right? Including people who came with their partner, and their partner ditches them and just starts crawling over you because you've got that much swag, right? Well, it's kind of like a weird question. Like, should someone even be allowed to have that much swag, right? I mean, that's an interesting question, right? Should someone even be allowed to have that much swagger? I mean, that's kind of a fucked up question, right? It's kind of fucked up to think about. But for any of you that have gone out for a couple years, you know the trajectory of going out for a couple years, right? Every year you get better. Every year you smash it. Every year it's just more and more awesome. Every year it's more and more insane. You do that long enough, it gets fucking crazy. But then, I mean, if you think about it, what if you're just a regular guy? You're like, look, I don't want to go out for years and years. I don't want to go out for 10 years. I just want to meet somebody. I don't want to have it, though, that when I meet somebody and we're married and we have kids, and then Mr. Swagman comes in and I lose my wife, right? So you see how, like, you know, they sort of see that and they're just like enraged by it, because it's like they're trying to create an environment where they can just be at peace and not have to, like, you know, try so hard, right? Look, same thing in business, right? Like when you get good in business, like when you understand sales and marketing, let's say that you understand sales and marketing high level. I mean, look, to put this in context, as a hobby, and I lose money when I do this. I'm so fucking busy and I could be actually running my business properly. But just for a personal hobby, I go out on the streets and I will close 5 or 10K sales just into Zelle or PayPal. I just do this when I'm bored. Okay, I know how to prospect for leads. I know the neighborhoods to go to. I know how to prospect for leads. And within about 10 minutes while I'm waiting for a fucking Uber, I can close on 5K. So when you've got somebody who can sell, an ice box, the word Eskimo is no longer used, right? But it's called an Inuit. Then there's always evolving names for that population, which I love dearly. But the main point is, like, if you can sell an ice box to an Eskimo, as they used to say, well, if you've got that kind of skill, you see how entrepreneurship just gets fucking wild, right? Now, let's say that you understand how to build a company. Let's say that you've studied management and marketing and product building, and you've just done this for years and years and years. You're such a G, people can't compete, right? And it's like, well, hey, I want to have my little corner store here, and you just got so good at this that I can't compete. So then what they do is they go, well, Mr. fucking individualist, it's that competitive. Fuck you. Fuck you. I will just get all my friends, because yeah, you have your individual might to wield, but I have collective might to wield. And what I'm going to do is fuck your shit up so that me and my friends do not have to, like, compete in these, just work around the clock to compete with you because you're fucking annoying, right? Like, if you think about it, I mean, think about that, right? Like, how are you going to beat Amazon at a certain point? So, and to be fair, there is kind of a point to that, right? Like things like monopolies and whatnot, right? Where it's like, some business just like works and works and works to build a monopoly. It's like, how do I run my life now? I mean, to be fair, I kind of did that in the dating industry back in the day. I mean, literally, we ran that company on such thin margins for so fucking long, and basically just pumped and pumped and pumped, like psycho footage. I mean, if you look like upstairs, just like point at the upstairs shot, like literally if you look upstairs, that whole thing was like a giant editing bay with like 20 different editing stations. We had several houses like this around the world, 24-hour a day fucking churn, just pumping out all this crazy fucking content. And I was actually inspired by Jeff Bezos. He called it, and we're good, bro. And he called it the everything store. And he was willing to work without profit for years. So I was just like cycling the money back in the company, paying people more, growing the business, learning about business, right? Well, what if some dude who just wants to run a little dating company, he's like, man, like, why do I have to compete with this? Like, I don't want to run like a goddamn empire just to be able to live my fucking life, Owen. Like, you see what I'm saying? But the flip side is, look at the content that came out of that. Programs like Hot Seat had millions of dollars in production value on it. That shit ain't cheap. Free, again, fucking A. Free events, like, oh yeah, just free events, like totally free all over the country, next to it in Portland and Seattle. Free programs, like Higher Purpose program, has free Zoom calls, free groups. I pay the guys that do the Zoom calls. I pay the guys that run the groups. I paid the money to put up the free course. You see where I'm going with this? All free. Right? That's when you run your business effectively. You can give away a bunch of free shit, just like how, on YouTube, they can give you free access to all these fucking videos. They'll put ads on it. But you know my point, right? Like, that's pretty fucking badass that all this amazing shit can get built. SpaceX and things like that, right? It's fucking incredible. But then at the same time, there's disadvantages, right? For example, in monopolistic practices, you have things like the social media platforms that are so competitive, and they're like, well, if you don't like it, build your own platform. But they have so much advantage over you that you can't build your own platform. They can run it as a monopoly, and they can use it to change elections just by simply deciding which videos get promoted and which ones don't. So now all of a sudden you have a bunch of people in San Fran that can basically decide the election, which makes them more powerful than the fucking government in some ways. Wow. Right? And Trump, by the way, was not quick to realize that. He thought it didn't matter, and then he found out. Okay, he don't found out. So you see what I'm getting at here, right? So there's a lot of weird complications that you're looking at between individualism and collectivism, right? Even if you're the staunch individualist, you're like, the individual should build and build and build freely. And then all of a sudden you're like, but wait a minute. what they can do is they can go build a social media platform, control the elections, vote in communism, and then utilize that to create a top-down economy and use that to lock the people down. You see where I'm going with this? So it's kind of a fucking clusterfuck, okay? Do not just be part of any one particular party, okay? If you like Trump, you should have policies of his that you don't like. If you hate Trump, you should have policies of his that you do like. If you are a Biden fan, tell me the top 5 right-leaning news sites that you went and looked at to educate yourself. If you're a Trump fan, tell me the top 5 left-leaning websites that you went to look at to educate yourself, right? It's amazing. People are so pre-programmed because the feed just keeps giving them one side. You have to understand both sides, okay? Again, Trump didn't promote any wars, had the economy running well, though too much debt. But then again, also was there to be pro-lockdown at the start of it, was also pro-big pharma, also didn't act quickly enough on big tech censorship. So, you know, it's like you can look at pros and cons of anybody. And you should be able to do that, okay? So that is kind of what you see happening as far as social dynamics, and it gives you a little bit of a Rosetta Stone to understand that people that are maybe a little bit more neurotic and a little bit more stifled, they see somebody who is completely and utterly self-sufficient, and they may have an instinct to say, you know what, we don't want to let that person exist within the ecosystem. We have to instinctively get rid of them. Now, the way that I began to realize this was, there was a few different ways that I realized this, but on my come up, what I realized, like as I was kind of coming up in all this, was as I was working on my socials, and by the way, when I say as I still am. It's still always a work in progress. Anybody that tells you they've arrived is a fucking loser, okay? You have never arrived. It's an infinite journey. Like sometimes these guys that are like intermediate level, they're like, I don't need any coaching. Like, I got this. I'm like, bro, you don't even know what good is. Like, I don't even know what good is yet. I'm 1,000 levels above you. If I don't know what good is, you don't know what good is, okay? Because the social skill, like the actual skills that we learn in this, the era that we're in now is like the NBA in the 1950s when a bunch of little white dudes were like, and just like throwing it up, okay? 50 years later, you had, you know, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, all these incredible guys. Same thing as in hockey, right? Like Wayne Gretzky was like my favorite player growing up. But if you look at the players now, Wayne laid the way for them. So that's what's so great about him. But, you know, it'd be interesting to see Wayne play in today's NHL. Of course, he'd still find a way to do it, but it's a different NHL, right? Things advance. The social skills that we have now, even me every single year breaking paradigm after paradigm after paradigm, and I do that every single year, that is, the hard part about it is just breaking that 4-minute mile. Once you break the 4-minute mile, you go, oh, that could be done. It's a fucking joke. But, you know, that's the harder part. Like, that was my role, is breaking the 4-minute mile. Like, I would hope that in the future, there's people putting footage out that's far, far, far ahead of mine. But my role in that will have been to break the 4-minute mile, to go, yo, this is fucking possible. Like, things that just seem fucking crazy, it seem impossible. All of a sudden, we're like, yo, that's completely fucking normal, right? So it's the normalization process that's the hard part, okay? But anyway, the Rosetta, as I was coming up, the Rosetta Stone that I wanted to show this to you was, the hardest part for me was not when I was a complete chump. When I was a complete chump, the way that this would pan out was like everybody was nice to me because I was kind of in the collective of losers. Then what happened was, as I was breaking out of that collective, but I hadn't really crossed over to being successful as an individual yet, I had a lot of bullshit. A lot of people picked on me. I got insulted a lot. I got rejected a lot. I got made fun of a lot, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that shit hurt at the time. It's funny now, I'm not sensitive, right? Part of being an individualist, you're not sensitive, you're not afraid of rejection, you're not afraid of being made fun of because you're internally validated, okay? You validate individually. You're not part of this collective matrix going, where do I stand in the group, okay? You just believe in yourself. But the point being was I hadn't pushed to that point yet. So I would see as like, you know, I would take rejections or like, you know, other guys would make fun of me and all that kind of stuff. And I remember when I was first learning to become unstifled, and I was making a real effort to open my voice up. And I'd go out and I would try just being on the street, just doing exercise where I'm yelling. And what I found was when I fully fucking owned it, people would clap with me, they would laugh with me, they'd come sing with me, and they'd have joy with me, dance with me, party with me. But anytime that I fucking half-assed it, guys would instinctively come and fucking punch me because they felt like, hey, this guy's breaking out of the collective of like, you know, shame and being stifled, and we got to re-put him back into the stifling, okay? So that's kind of what happens. Now, when you finally break through and then people see that, you know, they're not going to pull you back in the collective, you're your own person now, you're completely autonomous, you have your joy, then a lot of time people want to kind of come along the ride with you, and that's a good thing. Well, again, in the same way, that you would have seen, say, when I was learning how to be more brash and fun and project myself and own my power, that was questioned a lot by people that were trying to hurt that. But then over time, I was able to step into it, and then a lot of that reaction went away. Well, that's what happened on an individual level when I'm out. But all of a sudden, when you take that same energy and then you give information for people how to benefit themselves individually, so they're not just fitting into this collective anymore, but you're saying, no, you're going to break out of that. You're not just going to wait there, going to college and waiting for the job. You're going to become a multimillionaire on your own. You're going to crush it on your own. Well, when you teach that publicly and you do that publicly, that is also when you get that sort of collectivist attack. So that is why you'll see that, like, even though I'm just giving some coaching, teaching some guys how to make some cash, teaching people how to connect with people, but you'll see a lot of the time, whether it's podcasts, like a lot of leftist podcasts or collectivist podcasts, they instinctively see the kind of content that I teach and they fucking hate on it and they want to rip on it. And you'll just see this consistently. And there's a very, very, very big audience of people that consume that kind of content because the mass level population is largely unconscious and they want to stay in sort of an easier reality. Okay, so when someone comes along and says, hey, ditch the easier reality, stop the cope, don't just sit there making fun of people all day, but actually work on yourself, that is not a message that connects to them because they're in a deep, deep coping state and they're trying to gain clout within the collective, within the codes and ideologies of that collective. So when you switch to starting to do things on your own, if you broadcast that on social media, you'll be attacked on social media. That's okay. It doesn't bother me at all. But the funny thing is that they take it a step further because even though a guy like me could care less about stuff like that, you could probably guess that. Then what happens, those people start working at the companies that host you, and then they try to fuck you over at that level. Then they try to fuck you over at this whole back-end infrastructure level. That's where modern day cancel culture came from. And they do a lot of crazy shit that you wouldn't even imagine, okay? Then if you go past that and you're a very brash, loud, obnoxious politician like Trump, again, you can hate Trump's you can hate Trump. I don't give a shit. For me, I just judge people by policy. Both politicians, whether it's Biden, Trump, or JFK or RFK Jr., they have policies that I like and policies that I don't like. I'm not in a cult. I just look at the policies. But that said, whether you like or you hate the guy, he's very fucking loud, he's very fucking brash, and he definitely does not bow down to cancel culture. So a lot of people that are frankly just kind of loud and brash, even if they don't agree with every policy, and they might even find it to be divisive, if that is a core issue for them, they might find that kind of fucking hilarious because it's like this old NPD, and I mean, if you know narcissism and you know how to diagnose it, again, I'm not a psychologist, but I've studied NPD for years. I understand what clinical NPD looks like. I mean, you basically have this guy that, I'm not a psychologist, I can't give a professional diagnosis, but, a guy that at least has the traits, very, very telltale traits of somebody that has an NPD, narcissism. You've got this old NPD grandpa that just is completely unaware of the times, just totally in his own little world, out of touch. He's like, fuck y'all. And he's just going to say what he wants. He doesn't give a shit. He's brash. He's unoffendable. He never gets down. Just doesn't give a fuck. Now, funny enough with the NPD, he also gets sensitive and then starts tweeting to everybody that talks back at him, and he becomes self-qualifying in the second debates with Joe Biden. So there's a bit of both with people with NPD. But there's that side of people with NPD where they're fucking loud and they're brash and they don't give a fuck and they're just kind of fucking funny, right? And then to watch, if you're somebody who's now having to live under this kind of pulverizing anvil of collectivism where you can't even think straight and just be yourself, and then you just see this bull in a china shop, hardcore dude come in there who just doesn't give a fuck. You could even shoot him. You shoot him and he's like, fight. And you're just like, it's just, whether you're left wing or right wing, it really would be a shame to miss the humor of that, okay? Unless you just love that cancel culture shit and you're like, no, cancel, and that's just where you're stuck. So that dude, which is, the whole element of him even getting shot and then just not running off the stage, but just looking up and being like, no, wait, fight, right? It's that image will become so iconic for people that are individualists, where it's no, even if you got fucking shot, bleeding in your 70s, you're not a victim. You're not going to complain. You're not a victim. You just fucking keep going, right? Just determined. That is something that people that are individualistic will resonate with for thousands of years to come. And what you're going to see is that, we're kind of entering into what could be a divide in society. So we may have what's called parallel economies, and we're literally possibly moving towards that, where you'll have people that sort of go with the code of, a lot of speech codes and a lot of ways of acting that are sort of like the rules of the collective, and they'll be in sort of one group. And then you have a whole other parallel economy with its own internet, its own banking systems, its own Airbnb. I mean, things like that, like literally just everything in this kind of other system, like a parallel economy. It's getting crazy like that. The website Rumble, run by Chris Pavlovsky, is an example of that, right? Like that site doesn't even need to exist if it wasn't for this sort of left-wing, right-wing political divide. But the mere fact that that guy just lets people express freely, it's less about worried about offending people, and it's more about treating people like adults. And if someone doesn't want to watch something, they can turn it off, and then basically saying it's more about authenticity. I want to see what you really feel, and I want to debate you. I want you to be authentic, and I want you to say what you really feel, and that kind of thing's happening. Now, last thought that I'll give you is this. Okay, this is kind of my last thought on this. I would just say that I can tell you personally, okay, this is just what I have personally experienced. You definitely have a very, very different feeling when you are, just checking how far through this we are. We're about 40 minutes deep. So maybe talk about 5 more minutes. I think we got a pretty solid video here. Okay, when you get in that point where you can speak unfiltered, this last point I'm gonna give you, when you can get to that point where you can speak unfiltered, and think unfiltered and think outside the group think, it is a fucking heaven on earth. Like, the collective itself has a lot of benefits, okay? The group think itself has a lot of benefits. There's a lot of benefits to group think. But when you break out of the group think and you are just somebody who just speaks your mind and who honors your truth, okay? And that doesn't mean not to learn from experts. In fact, I learn from experts. I spend more money than anybody to learn from experts. But even though I'm learning from experts, at the end of the day, I am responsible for my truth. And so, it's not about having the Dunning-Kruger effect where you think you're smart when you're dumb. It's about having humility, learning from the best, but ultimately still being accountable for your truth. And the more that I can just connect to my own truth via research and learning from people, but the more that I can connect to my ultimate conclusions and trust my mind, the more that I think freely and without constraint, the more that I can joke and be brash and be funny and enjoy life, the more that I can be self-sufficient, do things for myself, also do them within teams, but, choose those teams myself, not that I have them assigned to me from top down. The more that I do that, the more that I just feel good. The more that I feel God's light, the more that I feel energized, the more that I feel excited about life, the better that I feel. And, so for me, the act of going out to a social gathering and just feeling a buzz in my own body while sober, completely sober, but a buzz in my own body, feeling my own power emanating through my body, feeling my voice projecting naturally, feeling myself free associating naturally, seeing the world through my own eyes, feeling that shit test and sliding through it so easily because I trust myself and I'm grounded. That feeling is something that you could never get within a collective. But what they try to do is they try to find that within a collective, but ultimately they never will. And it winds up being a pimp hole relationship between the elites and the masses, where the people at the top, they wind up basically controlling these people's brains through indoctrination process and things like that. And it's very, very, very unfortunate. But you also see that on the right wing, where people that are just NPCs for Trump. But the point is that, that feeling of being a rugged individualist, even though, again, I believe in a lot of collectivist stuff, Trump, for whatever reason, this crazy ass old man just became sort of an icon for that. Because in an era where the ability to be authentic was going down and down and down and down to the point that people could barely talk or think, total sensitivity all the time, this crazy ass old man, just bull in a China shop, just came in and was like, fuck y'all, And so even when he says things where you're like, oh my, bro, like, stop it, man. Like, bro, right? But for a lot of people, where if that's their issue, they connect to that. For me personally, I connect policy by policy. But I can love that aspect of somebody, like just like the hilarity of just like this old ass man, just this old ass man, puts his name on everything, and he just goes in there, and he was somebody where, what if he hadn't existed and the entire world just became so hypersensitive and so triggery, and there was nobody that gave any blowback from it? So I try to see the value in different people. Okay, so that's something of value that I see. But you know what? I'm also somebody who grew up reading everything about the Clintons and Barack Obama, right? Including Biden's role in Barack Obama's campaign and presidency. So I like to learn from everybody, okay? I learn from everybody. A lot to be learned. There was incredible books about the rivalry between Hillary Clinton and Obama. I've got to meet a lot of the left liberal elite. You know, I've met different people and learned from their ideas, okay? So I learned from everybody. I recommend that you do the same thing. But what I wanted to leave you with here was just to show you certain aspects of like the sexual aspect of the culture war, right? Like the fact that when someone's unstifled and brash, kind of like Trump, they kind of clean up in the sexual marketplace. And that's something that you should understand yourself for your own dating life, in your own social life, and your own ability to take responsibility. And I want you to understand that a lot of the fighting that you see is that people sometimes in the toxic versions of collectivism, when it's gone too far, not the good version where we don't put the Walmart in Yellowstone National Park, but the bad version where they're trying to put a speech code on everything, where they're trying to lock you down, trying to cancel you. That version, when they're trying to suppress thought, it results in a lot of purging. And the purging that you see, 100 million dead in China when communism came in, that kind of purging that you see in extreme versions of collectivism, that happens because they don't want the strong people to exist. But then again, there's problems with people that are too strong existing too, right? I'm not exactly the biggest fan of Amazon just taking everything over, and then I go to a city and there's not a bunch of cute little stores on Main Street anymore, right? So these are very, very pros and cons issues. I'd recommend that you try to understand them better. But what I'd say is that I just want you to understand the dynamic between collectivism and individualism and understand the extent to which you being plugged into a collectivism matrix will block you from building your social skills. Because social skills at a core level, the reason why you get approach anxiety, the reason why you take rejection hard is you're in the social matrix. The reason why you're afraid to build that YouTube channel because people would make fun of you is because you're in the social matrix. People like myself that you might look at that don't give a fuck what's said about them, that happens when you extricate yourself from the social matrix and you look at it as fucking ridiculous. Like you look at people like, well, this person is cool today and this person's not cool today and we don't like this person. And you're like, you guys are fucking crazy. Like I'm just out here fucking skiing, right? Like it's just sort of like this weird noise. But people that are in it, they live their lives through that collective matrix. It's meaningful to them. It's real to them. It's their life. But there's an entire life to be lived outside of that, okay? And that life, when you unplug from it, what happens is that certain unlocks happen on your brain, okay? And a lot of people that you see that are deeply in collectivism, they haven't had those unlocks happen. And so what winds up happening is they're in this sort of like suppressed state. They see some rugged individualist, they want to shoot him, they want to kill him, they want to cancel him, they want to debank him, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But what I'd also say is that when you have those unlocks, like if any of those people had an unlock, they wouldn't want to go kill someone anymore. They would want to go crush their own shit, right? We're probably not going to see that, the guy that shot Trump was some guy that was dating like 6 girls and, had $1 million that he made himself, right? So, So yeah, which is so sad what happened. But anyway, so understand what happens is that when you unplug from all this bullshit, you're basically just going to see it to where as you unplug from this shit, you're going to find it very, very easy to make money. You're going to find it very, very easy to be healthy in my experience, just my own personal experience, not telling you for sure. You're going to find it very, very easy to socialize. You're going to find it, your social results are going to go through the fucking roof. Your public speaking is going to get better. Your communication is going to get better. You're going to think a lot more clearly. Okay, so you've got to kind of purge that groupthink out of yourself to be at the highest level, because that groupthink in and of itself is meant to be societally cohesive, but not beneficial for you. Last point that I'd make about this is that think back to the incredible information that used to be able to come out of the internet up until 2014. And a lot of these incredible, incredible things that I know that I'm privy to, I understand don't get to come out. And so, by everything having to be put through these collective agendas for you to get the pure cocaine type information, like the good stuff, it's sad that we can't even get the right information anymore. And we saw that during 2020. We couldn't get the right information. And me sitting there, you might remember that I told you that lockdown was coming before it happened. And you might remember also that I told you other certain things that were happening at that time. Do you remember my videos back then? So imagine somebody like me seeing like, fuck, it's like we're in such a fucked up cultural moment right now that we can't even just have honest conversations with each other. Think of just all the incredible, beautiful content that I can't share with you, right? All because what, right? So a lot of that really, really, really potent information winds up getting reserved only for the people at the top in collectivism. Because they're like, no, the collective doesn't get to have that. Only we get to have that. A lot of the best stuff, okay? But I'm a little bit of, I don't know, I'm the kind of person where I want everybody to have access to it. Because for me, I came out of that. When I was given an opportunity, I was able to come out of that largely. So I want you to have that opportunity as well, okay? So I hope that you crush it and you're making money. I hope that you crush it in your social life. Praying for the country, praying for the world. Crazy moment right now. Looking forward to seeing you in person. Get out to an event. Excited for these events coming up. I'm going to see you guys in Portland, Seattle this weekend. Hawaii is coming up. Chicago, New York, Boston. Many events coming up. Higher Purpose program. Fully laid out, step by step. Just awesome. Just amazing. Free group. Free coaching call. Free Zoom calls. Whole community in there. Inside Higher Purpose program. Whole entire community. All for free. We're taking that down, by the way. We're capping it. We're taking it down. So if you want to get in, make sure that you get in. Make sure that you fly out and you see me in person. Okay? I'd like to shake your hand. I'd like to meet you. Excited to be driving up to the Pacific Northwest this weekend. Continuing our journey together. Okay? I love you very much. Here with you during all this crazy stuff going on. Just giving you a little bit of a Rosetta Stone. Hope that has helped. And we'll be back with more regular programming on personal growth coming up this week. See you soon. Peace.